Thanks for joining us right here on Inside the Zone on Wayne.com with Shane Albahrani, the voice of the Komets. Back from last week, you were still traveling. From Newfoundland when we taped this. How was that experience? Because I know you were really you had talked about it weeks in advance. You were really looking forward to not just the hockey, but the trip as well. Kind of a new experience going that far east for some hockey.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. You know, there's a lot of history there in Newfoundland, and everyone enjoyed it. It was a great experience. We're glad we only have to do it once. We are very appreciative that we're not in the North Division, where the other teams have to go up there maybe 3-4 times. But we were happy to make that trip once. It was a lot of fun.
Pretty cool because like you said, the Leafs have invested money into it. I mean, they've really gotten on board with making that, you know, a nice facility and making it a true affiliation where it is a branch off of what they do on the NHL side.
Yeah, and that's the big difference is that the Toronto Maple Leafs, they've definitely bought into the Growlers up there, and they've loaded up. I think they had 14 contracted players when we were up there. So you know, Toronto's done it up right, and I think, you know, that's something that maybe the league as a whole might be veering off to getting the NHL buy-in and having this kind of a true AA hockey team where it feeds up to the big club.
Okay, so you guys had the big trip there, 3 games, a lot of travel on the way back. Played Thursday up in Kalamazoo. That game, you're trailing 5-3. On the one hand, you did send it to overtime to get the point. On the other hand, unfortunately, you lose that game. Friday, come back. It's an 8-2 loss at home to Adirondack. We'll get into that. And then everybody knows what happened on Sunday. Rally again to send it into overtime, but unfortunately losing a shootout. Just overall, how do you summarize what we saw this past week on the ice for the Komets?
It was interesting, and at the end of the day, when this season is over, the one thing you're not going to be able to say is that it was boring, because it certainly has not. You know, this team is really a Jekyll and Hyde. That's the only way I can describe it, because you go from looking so good up in Newfoundland, where you had 3 games up there against a first-place team, one of the highest-scoring teams in the league. You hold them to 6 goals over 3 games. You take them to overtime all 3 games, then you come back the next weekend and you give up 19 goals, 2 of those games on home ice. So, you know, it goes from a really good team that looks like, oh, this is a team that's going to make a run, to a team that seems like they just met each other yesterday. But, you know, we knew from the get-go that this year was going to be a work in progress, and it still very much is.
I was going to say, at this point in the season, you're about 2/3 of the way through your game. So do you feel like you have a real grasp, or Gary has a real grasp, or anybody out there has a real grasp on what we're going to see night in and night out with this team?
No, I don't think so. And that's the problem. The inconsistency is the issue. And talking to Gary before the game yesterday, that, you know, he was kind of shaking his head. He's like, I've never been through this before. But this team is a very talented team. But, you know, some nights it's just, you know, you can't score a goal, like which happened up in Newfoundland. You had excellent defense, you had excellent goaltending, but you couldn't get one past the goaltender. Some nights the defense, sometimes the goaltender. We just haven't been able very many games to get all three things clicking at the same time. You know, this team has played 49 games, 25 of them have been 1-goal games. If that tells you the margin of error, you know, you had 5 straight games going to overtime. So, you know, considering what this season could have been, the Komets are in a very good spot. They really are.
When you take a look at last week, obviously defensively, you don't want to see 6 goals, 8 goals, 6 goals again. Obviously, you know, someone's got to score in overtime. But when you take a look at just the way that it played out, what's the big takeaway from that? What is Gary going to be stressing this week in practice? Obviously, you don't want to give up, you know, 6, 8, 5 if you don't count the shootout. With 6 on Sunday.
I mean, it's just consistency. It's something that, you know, we keep talking about it, and I think Gary's you know, doesn't have many more ways to explain it, and that's really it. It's all, you know, on the guys now. You know, Gary and Ben, you know, they've got the system. These guys have been around, and this lineup really hasn't flip-flopped a whole lot, considering you haven't gotten much from Las Vegas and Chicago. So there really hasn't been a whole lot of in and out when you have an affiliate. So no, I mean, there really are the answers to it. I don't have it. You know, I think everyone in the locker room kind of looking inwardly now. It's like, you know, guys, we've got the talent to do this. We've just got to get everything firing at the same time.
Speaking of guys coming back, though, Zach back in goal. Obviously, Gary had to make a tough decision because Levine was playing pretty well. And he had to put him on reserve just because carrying 3 goaltenders is pretty much not going to happen very frequently in the ECHL. So
well, at this point of the year, you will see teams carry 3 goaltenders
actively.
I mean, it's not a probable thing, maybe not even practical. But when you get down to the stretch run, when goaltending, you're not going to be able to find a guy if Zach Fucale does get called back up, or you could have an injury. There's not going to be very many guys out there, and plus a good goaltender as good as Eric Levine. When you look at the other teams in the division, a team like Wheeling, who's been dealing with emergency backups for a couple of weeks, I'm sure that's the first phone call he would get. So maybe it's also to keep him off of another
little
roster
gamesmanship,
as well.
to a degree, which certainly you can understand at this point in the season. One of the guys that had a pretty good week last week, Brady Shaw, he's been solid since he's come up from Orlando in the trade that just got finalized really not all that long ago. But 3 goals this past week. He now leads the team with 43 points on the season. Part of that is because we've seen Haji sit out the past 3-4 weeks. But what has Brady Shaw brought to this team, and what kind of sticks out to you about what he's been able to do on the ice?
Well, he's a champion. He's won 2 straight championships in Colorado. He won that one last year, beating the Komets in 7 games in the Western Conference Final. So I think he brings that determination. It's something that we saw last year in Colorado, and it's something that obviously stuck out to Gary Graham and the Frankies. That here's a guy who he wants to win championships, and same like a guy with Jamie Shasmo at this point in the season, just invaluable. Just guys, this is what you have to do to make it in the playoffs. So I think he brings that experience, and he just brings that grit. He's just a guy who is full out every shift, every second of the game, and that will rub off on other players.
We talked about Mr. Shaw, but leading the team now in points with 43. Part of that is we haven't seen Justin in a while. We did see him on the show last week, which was great. He brought one of his kids in, and it was a good time. But we'd like to see him back out on the ice. We saw him on the ice Wednesday in practice when we were out there. How close is he? What is the discussion between him and Gary? And when do you think we could expect to see him back on the ice? Because he's an all-star, he's a scorer, he's a playmaker.
You know what? You had him here. You could have asked that question last week. He knows more than I do. So
I did, and he answered it like a professional, but he wants to get back, as soon as possible. It's just what makes the most sense, because they are going to need him down the stretch.
Yeah, and what's also kind of good, the Komets are in a good shape. We're right in the middle of the pack, right in the middle of things. There's 2 points separating 3rd place and 6th place right now. So, you get a fresh Justin Hodgman, means he'll have some fresh legs. It means, he'll be a little more energetic. And also, remember, you still have Marco Waugh, who was called up to Laval right at the tail end of that last road trip. So he'll be back for the playoffs. Also, Felix Martineau, who is up with Laval as well. He has been a healthy scratch the past few games. So you might start looking at him maybe coming back to Fort Wayne as well, at least for the playoffs. So there's still a lot of talent yet to come back on this roster. And remember, this is still a work in progress. The trade deadline has not passed. Okay, there's still those options there. And then in a few weeks, when the college season starts to end, you're going to start seeing a fresh influx of players to every team in this league. So there's going to be a lot of talent out there to grab as well down the stretch.
And the Komets have been aggressive in pulling out college guys before.
Yeah, and that's not going to change. Anthony Petruzzelli was a guy who came in at the tail end last year, and he's been a great addition this year. So expect to see those guys pop up on the roster. So this team is still not done making moves.
This is the part of the year where Blake generally would say, "Who's going to be better than Justin Hodgman? You're going to get arrested, Justin Hodgman, with fresh legs. Who's going to be better than that in a trade or a signing at this point in the season? That's the best move you can get."
Yeah, I mean it is true. I mean it is true. But like we said, like I said 10 times already, it's a work in progress. And I'll tell you what, if someone is available out there, they're going to make a play to get him in this lineup.
Jason Binkley scored his 100th point this past weekend. He's already got 8 goals, which is a career high. What is it about Binkley? Because we've seen him for a few years now. Where has he elevated his game, and what kind of differences do you see in him now as opposed to when he first suited up for the Komets?
Well, I'll tell you what, Binkley is one of the best shutdown defensemen in this league. He doesn't get recognized like he should, but I know last year during the playoffs, I mean, he was straight up shut down. And you get guys like that, they don't get the headlines, but those are the guys who really win hockey games for you. So I've noticed that progression in Jason Binkley. I mean, he can be physical when he can handle the puck. He can shoot from the blue line. And also now, he's been given a letter on his sweater. They've given him that leadership role as well. So, that might not have happened a few years ago, but now they feel pretty comfortable having that guy as a captain.
Yeah, what's the atmosphere in the locker room like right now? Because I feel like Komets fans are kind of pulling their hair out, but really, you've got 2-3 games in hand when you take a look at the standings. I mean, as you mentioned, only 2 points separating third from sixth, and the Komets are right in there at fourth right now. But they've got, what is it, like Kalamazoo ahead of them. They got 1 game in hand on Kalamazoo. Wheeling's right behind. Wheeling's tied, actually, with them with 54 points. They got 4 games in hand on Wheeling, and they've got 3 games in hand on Indy, who's right there at 53 points. So, I mean, like, I know that they're not super thrilled with how things have been going, but, like, they're going to get some of those points. They're going to raise themselves up in those standings.
Yeah, they really are in a very good spot. You just mentioned the games at hand. 18 games still left against divisional opponents. Right there you go. Mm-hmm. So your destiny's in your own hand when you're playing all of those teams down the stretch. You're going to see a lot of Indianapolis. We're going to see a lot of Wheeling. We're going to see a lot of Kalamazoo, and those are the teams that you are fighting with. So those are all 4-game swings essentially. So considering how up and down this team has been, a lot of games in overtime, getting points. And you look at the record over the last 10 games, it looks really weird. Mm-hmm. But points are being made in those games, even though they go down as losses.
And a lot of them are rallies to get to overtime, which, you think midway through that game, oh man, we're getting 0 points. and they dig one out. I mean, that's sort of, you'd rather be winning and you'd rather be ahead. But it's kind of impressive the way that they forced some games into overtime and picked up a point where midway through the night you thought it wasn't possible. Yeah, and that shows the determination, the talent this team has. I mean, just like Sunday night and then Thursday up in Kalamazoo, when this team wants to put it all together, they certainly can. And if they can put together a full 60 minutes, watch out. It doesn't matter what seed you are in the playoffs. You just want to get that invitation. So anything can change, and especially here down the stretch. I think this team is going to be extremely dangerous, especially going into the playoffs. I mean, this is a team where it's been night and day some nights. So this looks like a team that's not going to make the playoffs, but the next night it looks like a team who could win it all. It's crazy. So like I said, it has not been a boring season. It's been exciting. I'm looking forward to it because, again, all these games, 21 left, 18 against divisional, 23 left and 18 left against divisional opponents. All these games are going to be meaningful. So you have to take it, if you're going to a Komet game, it's a playoff game from here on out. Yeah, and that leads me into this week's schedule. Is you got 3 games at home. As I mentioned, you have the games in hand. So this is really a week where you can make hay, playing on your home ice. Wichita on Wednesday, Wichita on Friday, and then Cincinnati on Sunday. This is a week where, you're sleeping in your own bed. You can kind of get back in a rhythm. They can get into practice, get some things done, get healthy, and be at home. I mean, this could be a really big week for the Komets.
Yeah, but it's inconsistency at home, and that's something that has also been preached. I mean, this team is a few games over 500, so that shows you, and the records home and the road are pretty much identical. So ideally, this is a week to do that. On
paper, yeah.
On paper, yes, this is the week to do it. But you've got 2 games against a team not in your division,
right?
So you don't have your destiny in your own hands this week. This team just needs to get points, and that's what they're going to do. Wichita is a team that's coming out. They are kind of the same spot the Komets are in, but they're out of the playoffs right now. They're out in the West. They're playing Indy this week, so they are on a long road trip. Mm-hmm. And Kalamazoo, they are going to be on a heck of a road trip, too. They're playing up in Brampton right now as we speak.
Oh, wow.
They're going to go to Cincinnati, play a game, then they go all the way out to Kansas City. And that's a team that has been so-so on the road. So we're going to be at home. Kalamazoo is going to be on the road. So look at it that, we got some home cooking here this week, and your opponents are going on the road.
It could be nice. What are you most looking forward to seeing, or what do you want to see, I should say, from the Komets this week with these 3 home games?
You just want to see the consistency. You want to see 60 minutes put together. You want to see the defense. You want to see goal scoring, and you want to see great goaltending. And we've got it all. You just got to put it together. Another thing you didn't mention, getting Justin Hodgson back will be huge. Mm-hmm. But getting Sean Sedlowski back, being Sean Sedlowski.
Yes.
He went a whole month without scoring a goal. He got a goal on Sunday. And you get Sean Sedlowski going. He's a slow starter. I know it's kind of hard to say that when it's February, but he came in back in November. So, as soon as he starts getting his wheels back under him, it's going to be a fresh player coming in this lineup, to see, you get the reigning MVP and scoring champ, you get him going down the stretch, and we've seen what he can do in playoffs, so, there's another guy you have to look towards. Like, if he can get hot, watch out.
All right. Well, we will definitely keep an eye on it this week. 3 home games for the Komets. That includes Pink the Rink on Friday and on Sunday.
That's right.
So you definitely want to be out supporting that and auctioning the jerseys during the game for charity. And it should be a good time out of the Coliseum this week. For Shane, I'm Glenn, and we'll see you next Monday here on Inside the Zone.